Imagine living on an island so crowded, so dense, and so cut off from the rest of the world that from a distance it looked less like a town and more like a warship. An island of concrete apartment blocks, narrow alleys, dark stairwells, tiny rooms stacked on top of each other. No trees, almost no open space, only walls, sea, and the constant rhythm of industrial life. This was Hashima Island, off the coast of Nagasaki, Japan. Today, it is one of the most haunting abandoned places on Earth, a ruined island city left to decay in the middle of the sea. But Hashima was not built to be beautiful. It was built for one purpose: coal. And for decades, that one purpose turned a tiny island into one of the strangest and most crowded places in the world. Then, almost as suddenly as it rose, it was abandoned. This is the story of the island that once held thousands of people, and then fell silent.
Before it became famous as a ghost island, Hashima was a working place, a hard place, a practical place. A place built around survival, labor, and extraction. The island sits off Nagasaki, and over time it became closely tied to Japan's industrial growth. Mitsubishi bought and developed the island in 1890, turning it into a major coal mining site. As the mine expanded, so did the island itself. Land was reclaimed, seawalls were built, and the place slowly transformed into a dense, artificial industrial settlement in the open sea. What had once been little more than a rocky outcrop became something extraordinary, a city on an island. But not the kind of island city people dream about. There were no beaches, no calm village streets, no escape from the sea. Everything on Hashima existed because of the mine below it. The walls were there because of the sea, the buildings were there because of the workers, and the workers were there because of coal. The island's nickname came from its silhouette. Seen from a distance, it resembled a battleship. That is why it became widely known as Battleship Island. And once the buildings started rising higher and closer together, the image only became stronger. The island no longer looked natural. It looked armored, defensive, almost unreal.
At its peak, Hashima was one of the most densely populated places on Earth. By the late 1950s, around 5,200 people were living there. Think about how small that island is. Thousands of people. Families, workers, children, neighbors, all compressed into a concrete world surrounded by waves. Space was limited, so life became vertical. Apartment blocks rose tightly together. Walkways and stairs connected homes, schools, rooftops, and shared spaces. There were shops, a school, public baths, and community areas, because an island like this could not function without its own internal system. In a strange way, Hashima was a complete world, closed, crowded, self-contained. Children were raised there, families ate dinner there, people went to work, returned home, slept, and repeated the cycle inside one of the most extreme urban environments imaginable. And yet, to the people who lived there, this wasn't a curiosity. It was normal life. That is one of the things that makes abandoned places so powerful. When we look at them later, we see strangeness, but for the people living there at the time, it was simply home.
Hashima mattered because of what was underground. Coal helped fuel ships, factories, and industry during a period when Japan was rapidly modernizing and expanding its industrial power. Hashima became part of that broader industrial story. That gives Hashima a strange double identity.
It is both a ghost island and a monument to industrial ambition. It represents the power of a society trying to industrialize quickly, but it also shows the human cost of building places entirely around one resource. Because when a place depends on only one thing, it can survive for decades and then disappear with shocking speed. From the outside, Hashima may look cinematic now, beautiful in a dark way, ruined concrete, broken windows, empty apartment blocks facing the sea. But life there was not designed to be poetic. It was dense, harsh, disciplined. The sea was always near, storms were always a threat. The walls around the island existed for a reason. Inside those walls, life had to be organized tightly. There was no room for waste, no room for expansion beyond what engineering could force into existence.
That pressure shaped the island's entire atmosphere. Everything about Hashima feels compressed. The buildings are compressed. The space is compressed. The history is compressed. Even now, when people see the photographs, they react not just to the abandonment, but to the claustrophobia. Hashima does not feel like a place people slowly grew into. It feels like a place they were packed into. And maybe that's why the ruins hit so hard today, because even empty, the island still feels crowded. Its walls still hold the memory of pressure. Then the world changed. Coal was no longer the future. As Japan shifted away from coal and toward petroleum, places built entirely around coal mining began to lose their purpose. Hashima was one of them. And that is the brutal rule of industrial places. When the resource matters, they are essential. When it stops mattering, they become fragile almost overnight.
In 1974, the mine closed. And with that, the reason for the island's existence collapsed. The workers left, the families left, the daily routines ended. A place that had once held thousands of lives suddenly had no clear future at all. That is the haunting part. Hashima was not abandoned because of war, not because of a natural disaster, not because the island physically sank into the sea. It was abandoned because the economic logic that created it disappeared. And once that happened, almost everything else disappeared with it. Imagine what that must have felt like. A place full of routine, voices, footsteps, machinery, school days, laundry lines, neighbors, announcements, doors opening and closing, and then silence. A complete community erased not by explosion, but by irrelevance. That may be one of the darkest forms of abandonment. Not destruction, obsolescence. Hashima became the kind of place the modern world creates again and again. A place built intensely, used intensely, and then left behind when the system moves on.
In that sense, Hashima is not just about Japan. It is about modernity itself. It asks a disturbing question. What happens to places that were built perfectly for one era but have no place in the next one? After 1974, the island was left exposed to time and weather. And time is brutal to empty places, especially in the open sea. Salt, wind, rain, storms, years without daily human maintenance. Buildings cracked, materials decayed, structures deteriorated. That fragility is part of what makes the island so unsettling. Hashima does not look peacefully preserved. It looks like something caught in the act of disappearing. A world half there, half gone. The staircases remain, but lead nowhere meaningful now. The apartment blocks still stand, but no one returns home at night.
The schoolrooms, corridors, rooftops, and seawalls still suggest structure, but the life that gave them purpose is gone. And that absence is impossible to ignore.
There is another reason Hashima leaves such a strong impression. Most abandoned places are connected to land. You can imagine roads leading away, fields beyond them, another town not far away. Hashima has none of that. It sits alone in the sea. That isolation changes everything. It makes the island feel final. There is no surrounding neighborhood to soften the emptiness, no gradual transition from busy to quiet. There is only ocean and ruins. That is why photographs of Hashima feel so different from ordinary urban decay. This is not a forgotten building on the edge of a city. This is an entire sealed world that lost its reason to exist. And because it is surrounded by water, the abandonment feels absolute. The island does not merely seem empty, it seems cut off from time itself.
Today, Hashima is known around the world as one of the most iconic abandoned places ever photographed. People are drawn to it because it looks impossible, too dense, too severe, too strange to have been a normal place where ordinary families once lived. But that is exactly what it was. And that contrast is what gives the island its power. Hashima is not frightening because it is fictional. It is frightening because it was real. Real children, real workers, real apartment blocks, real routines, real lives inside a place that now looks almost post-apocalyptic. The island reminds us how quickly a human environment can become alien once life disappears from it. Not in centuries, in only a few decades.
Hashima is now remembered as both achievement and ruin, a symbol of engineering and ambition, a relic of extraction and industrial dependence, a place of memory, deterioration, and unanswered feeling. Was it a triumph, a warning, a monument, a ruin? Maybe it is all of those things at once, because the strangest places are rarely strange for only one reason. They are strange because history, architecture, geography, industry, and human memory all become trapped together in one location. And on Hashima, they still are. Hashima Island was once full of life, work, noise, and pressure. Now it stands empty. A battleship without a crew, a city without a future, a place built with total purpose and then left behind when that purpose ended. That is why Hashima stays in people's minds. Not just because it is abandoned, but because it shows how extreme human life can become when everything is organized around one need, and how quickly that world can vanish when the need is gone. In the end, Hashima is not just an abandoned island. It is a reminder that some places are built so intensely for one moment in history that when history moves on, all that remains is a shell, a concrete memory in the sea. And that is what makes Hashima Island one of the strangest places on Earth. If you enjoy strange places, abandoned worlds, and real stories with haunting backstories, subscribe to Strange Places Explained for more.